Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz. This is Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the MLB game scheduled for Tuesday, April 23rd, 2024. And if you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, including my daily rundown best bet in the MLB, you can find those at the premium picks tab at pickdawgz.com. There's also a link in the description. Alrighty, here we go. Here are the games for Tuesday in Major League Baseball. First up, we see the Boston Red Sox taking on the Cleveland Guardians. Tanner Houck and Ben Lively are the starters. We mentioned all the injuries that the Red Sox are dealing with, but this team's actually playing pretty good baseball, and we saw them sweep the Pirates in the weekend series on the road. Now, there are 3 games above 500 overall this season and 10-3 on the road away from Fenway Park. And we saw this same pitching matchup last week at Fenway Park where Tanner Houck had one of the best starts of his career. It was a complete game shutout, 9 innings, 9 strikeouts. Not an easy thing to do to strike out that many Guardians hitters in that game. He had no walks given up. It was, almost a perfect outing. He gave up a couple of, singles, and that was it. It was 3 base hits, and that was it. And, while it's going to be tough to replicate that kind of start, I still think he's a better option in this game. Ben Lively gave up in 5 innings of work, 2 earned runs and a home run. He had 7 strikeouts to go with it, which is, surprising for somebody that doesn't really miss a lot of bats. But I think the Red Sox get to him. Their offense has actually been pretty solid, even without guys like O'Neill and Devers, who are injured right now. But I'm going to go with the Boston Red Sox in this one on the money line in Game 1. Next up, we see the Milwaukee Brewers taking on the Pittsburgh Pirates. Wade Miley and Bailey Falter, a pair of lefties on the mound in this one. Milwaukee, we mentioned the last couple of years, their numbers have not been amazing against lefties. To start this season, they were decent, but now we look at the numbers. Milwaukee is ranked 27th in isolated power, 26th in team OPS against southpaws with a pretty steep 26.1% strikeout rate. It's still a pretty small sample size. Brewers have not really faced a lot of lefties this year. In fact, they have the least amount of plate appearances against lefties of any team in baseball. So, take that with a grain of salt, but the Pirates have hit lefties pretty well, right around league average in team OPS and ISO, a high walk rate to go with it. And while the strikeout rate's pretty steep, we know Wade Miley is not a strikeout guy. He had no strikeouts in his first start against Cincinnati, only 2 in the next game against San Diego. And in that start against San Diego, he went 3 innings of 3 earned run, 4 total run baseball with a home run and 2 walks given up and a 6-3 Brewers loss. So, the Pirates are not in great form. We know that they had a really hot start to the season. They have not played. They've definitely cooled off quite a bit since, but I like their matchup in this game at PNC Park against a division rival, so give me the Pirates in this one on the money line. Next up, we see the Philadelphia Phillies taking on the Cincinnati Reds. Another game with 2 lefties on the mound. It's going to be Christopher Sanchez and Andrew Abbott. Andrew Abbott's got a 2.7 ERA, but the expected numbers aren't the best, and we saw him struggle a bit in that last game against Seattle. Not a great offense, but Abbott gave up 2 home runs. It was a quality start still, but the Reds went on to lose that game 5-1 in the end. He had 3 walks given up. The control's always a concern with Abbott, who's already got 7 walks this season. And, Philadelphia's starting to do a lot better offensively. They had a really slow start to the season. Sanchez has been a great option on the mound for this team. He's got great expected numbers, a 2.53 ERA, coming off a start against the Rockies where he goes 6 innings of no earned run baseball with 10 strikeouts in a 7-6 Phillies win. I'm going to go with the Phillies in this spot on the road on the money line. Next up, it's the Los Angeles Dodgers taking on the Washington Nationals. James Paxton and Patrick Corbin are your starters. As much as I do have my regression concerns for James Paxton's game, I don't think this is the matchup to fade him because you got Patrick Corbin on the other side who's got that ERA above 8 this season, and we saw the Dodgers offense really have a breakout day against the Mets in the final game of that series, and we know LA can hit lefties. While it's a slow start to the season for them, they're still above league average in team OPS, and I think they get to Corbin early and often. And, James Paxton, a lefty facing a Nationals team that I'd much rather back when they're facing a righty. The Nationals are crushing right-handed pitching. They're actually top 10 in OPS and isolated power. When you look at against left-handed pitching, high strikeout rate, 28th in team OPS, one of the worst isolated power numbers as well. Low walk rate. I just can't get there with Washington in this matchup. We've taken them the last couple of days, especially in that Astros series. We were getting a great, plus money prices, and we were cashing big on them. But this is not the matchup. Maybe later on in this series, but in this game, I'm going to go with the Dodgers and lay the 1.5 runs. Next up, we see the Detroit Tigers taking on the Tampa Bay Rays. Kenta Maeda and Ryan Pepiot are your starters. To me, this is a lopsided pitching matchup. Even though Pepiot has not been excellent this year, I still think he's got a lot of upside to his game. The expected numbers are strong. He's got great strikeout stuff. He has a favorable matchup here facing a Tigers team. He's got some of the worst numbers in baseball against right-handed pitching. So I think Pepio, I think we see more of what we saw in the last game against the Angels, where he goes 6 innings, 1 run, 7 strikeouts, and a 2-1 Rays win. Maeda has not been great this season. He wasn't great in spring training. He kind of carried over those struggles into the regular season. That last start against the Rangers, 2 2/3 innings, 5 earned runs, and 3 home runs. I know the Rays aren't the Rangers in terms of their offensive success so far, but I still think they get to Maeda, and I think the Rays win this game. So it's a little bit of a juicy price here on the money line. So maybe you lay the 1.5 runs on the run line, but I'm going to go with Tampa Bay on the money line. Next up, we see the Oakland Athletics taking on the New York Yankees. Paul Blackburn and Marcus Stroman are your starters. Paul Blackburn's been one of the more profitable pitchers in baseball this season. I mean, his Oakland Athletics are 4-0 in his first 4 starts. But his last game was a little bit concerning. He had 6 base hits and 5 walks allowed in 5 2/3, 3 earned runs, his first runs given up on the season. Now you're going into Yankee Stadium facing the Yankees, who have great numbers against righties, and I think they get to Paul Blackburn early in this game, honestly. And Marcus Stroman has been really solid for the Yankees this season, with pitching with his new team. Sub-3 ERA, does a good job of keeping the ball on the ground. This A's bullpen's been, actually a surprise, positive surprise for this team, but I don't think it's going to be enough in this one. I'm going to go with the New York Yankees and lay the 1.5 runs at Yankee Stadium. Next up, we see the Miami Marlins taking on the Atlanta Braves. Trevor Rogers and Max Fried are your starters. We noticed that Max Fried struggled in spring training and really carried over those struggles to the regular season, where he wasn't able to get out of the first inning against the Phillies in the first game. Then he gives up 7 earned runs. I think he gave up 6 or 5 runs in the first inning of the next game against the Diamondbacks. And but towards the end of that Diamondbacks game, he was able to settle in, and we started to see the Max Fried that we're used to seeing. And he was able to give the Braves some innings in that game. They actually went on to win that one 9-8. And his next start, Fried was excellent. It was 6 1/3 against these Marlins. It was only 1 earned run baseball, 8-1 final score in favor of Atlanta. In fact, even despite Fried's struggles this year, the Braves are still 4-0 in his first 4 starts. Goes to show you how strong this Braves lineup and bullpen can be. And last game for Fried wasn't his best either. 5 innings, 7 base hits, 3 earned runs against the Astros. But that's a really strong Astros lineup against lefties. The last few years, they've crushed lefties with a really low strikeout rate. So no surprise to see Fried struggle a bit in that game. But now, pitching at home against a favorable matchup against a team you already dominated against, a Marlins team that when you look at the numbers against lefties, some of the worst in baseball, 29th in team OPS, very low isolated power. I think Fried pitches well, and you got the Atlanta Braves, who we've mentioned, slow start to the season against lefties offensively, really picking it up as of late. They're now top 5 in OPS and isolated power against lefties. I think they get the Rogers for enough runs to win this game and cover the run line. Give me the Braves laying the 1.5 runs. Next up, we see the Chicago White Sox taking on the Minnesota Twins. Eric Fedde and Pablo Lopez are your starters. I mentioned, as bad as the White Sox have been offensively, the Twins have not been much better. When you look at these two teams against right-handed pitching, both are near the bottom in a lot of the important hitting metrics. But the White Sox actually have a much lower strikeout rate. So in a game like this, Pablo Lopez is a really good starting pitching option, but Fedde's got a lower ERA to start the season, and Lopez, we know he's always susceptible to the home run ball. He's given up at least 1 in 3 of his first 4 starts. His strikeout numbers are great, but like I mentioned, the White Sox do a decent job at limiting strikeouts against righties. And Eric Fedde has faced some tough lineups. He faced the Royals twice, and I believe the Cleveland Guardians as well. And he's still got a sub-4 ERA, almost a sub-3 ERA. Through 4 starts this year. I mentioned he pitched really well in Korea last year, and he's got about a strikeout per inning to start this season. The home run ball is a concern for him as well, but to me, the value is firmly on the White Sox in this game on the money line, or plus the 1.5 runs on the run line. I think that the Chicago White Sox keep this game close. Give me the 1.5 runs with the road team. Next up, we see the Chicago Cubs hosting the Houston Astros. No official starter for Houston, but we should see Jordan Wicks going for Chicago. The interesting game here, while we mentioned the Astros have hit lefties very well over the last few years, we did see them get shut out by a youngster in Mitchell Parker on Sunday, 6-0 the final score in a game where Washington was a big-time home underdog. And, you look at Jordan Wicks, he's somebody that has obviously struggled this year with an ERA above 5, but he's got great strikeout stuff, and he's only given up 1 home run in 17 innings of work. Really, the control, the walks have been the issue for him to start the year, but he only had 1 walk given up in 4 1/3 in his last game. And by the way, that was against the Arizona Diamondbacks, who have also hit lefties very well this season. So it was promising to see Wicks go 4 1/3 of 2-run baseball in a 5-3 Cubs win against one of the better lineups against lefties. And when you look at this bullpen, the Astros bullpen, it's been one of the weakest in all of baseball. We don't even know who the official starter is for this game. It could be a bullpen game. It could be a spot starter. And if that's the case, I don't trust Houston's pitching staff at Wrigley Field here against a Cubs lineup. It's been one of the better lineups in the National League. So I'm going to go with the Chicago Cubs in this one at home on the money line. Next up, we see the Toronto Blue Jays taking on the Kansas City Royals. Kevin Gausman and Michael Wacha are your starters. Kevin Gausman is just he's not in the form that we're used to seeing from him. I mean, even last game against the Yankees, where he goes 5 innings of one-run ball, we're used to seeing Gausman go 6-7 innings plus per start. He's been one of the better pitchers in the American League, and he's 3 walks given up in that Yankees game. We're not used to seeing Gausman struggle with the free passes, with the control. And it was nice to see him have 6 strikeouts in 5 innings, but it was still a Blue Jays loss in the end. The Blue Jays have lost each of his last 3 games now, including a 12-4 blowout loss to the Colorado Rockies, where the Rockies were plus like 210, plus 220 in that game. So to me, there's value against Gausman right now. And, Michael Wacha, I think he's been an underrated starting pitcher this season. While his numbers aren't amazing, he still has a sub-4 ERA, and he's giving out, the Royals some quality innings. He struggled quite a bit against the Mets in that one game at Citi Field, but other than that, he's been pitching really solid baseball, and the Royals have a great lineup against right-handed pitching, better numbers than the Blue Jays have right now. So give me the Kansas City Royals in this one on the money line. Next up, we see the Arizona Diamondbacks taking on the St. Louis Cardinals. Steven Matz for St. Louis, but no official starter for the D-backs. Because we don't know the official starter for Arizona, I'm looking at this game. I'm isolating it to the team total for Arizona in the first 5 innings. I'm going to look at the matchup here against Steven Matz. Matz struggled a bit against the Diamondbacks back on April 12th. While it was only 1 earned run, it was still 4 total runs and 8 base hits in that game, and only 2 strikeouts in 4 2/3 innings. And that was a high-scoring game, 9-6 the final score. And now you're facing the same lineup in the span of about 10 days. And Arizona's got great numbers against lefties this year. They do a good job at limiting strikeouts. Matz is his next start against the A's after that game against Arizona. He goes 5 innings of 7 base hit, 5 earned run baseball with a home run and 3 walks to go with it. His numbers, the ERA is solid at sub-4, but his expected numbers aren't the best. And while last year he pitched better in terms of the ERA at Busch Stadium than on the road, his per nines actually were worse at home than on the road. His strikeout rate was lower, the walk rate was higher, and he gave up a higher home runs per 9. So I'm going to go with Arizona team total over in the first 5 innings of this game. This Cardinals bullpen's actually been pretty solid this year, so just give me the over in the first 5 for the team total Arizona. Next up, we see the Seattle Mariners taking on the Texas Rangers. Logan Gilbert and Dane Dunning are your starters. The Mariners are coming off that Coors Field series, and while I'm always a little bit hesitant backing teams when they're coming off a Coors Field series, it was a much-needed day off on Monday, and I think that's the key here. The Rockies, we backed them against the Blue Jays in the first game of that series when Gausman was pitching because they had the day off before, and they scored 12 runs. Their offense was just fine in that game in a blowout win. So while I still think the Mariners' offense has been one of the weaker ones in the American League, I'm not too worried about it in this game against Dane Dunning, who I'm looking to fade right now. He's given up at least 1 home run in each of his first 4 games. The control's not been the best. He's got less than a strikeout per inning. So to me, there's value against a guy like Dunning right now. And Logan Gilbert's in great form. I mean, he had a really tough matchup, honestly, in the last game against the Reds. The Reds are a very powerful lineup, a lot of extra base hits, a lot of home runs. And for somebody like Gilbert, who has some issues with the home run ball in his career, it was an amazing matchup on paper, but he went 6 2/3 innings of 1 earned run, 6 strikeout baseball, no home runs given up in a 3-1 Mariners win. And now the Mariners are 3-1 in his first 4 starts this year against some tough teams, the Red Sox, Brewers, Blue Jays, and Reds. So I'm going to go with the Seattle Mariners in this one on the money line. I think there's value with Seattle on the road. Their bullpen's honestly, a lot better in this matchup, in my opinion. So give me the Mariners on the money line. Next up, we see the San Diego Padres taking on the Colorado Rockies. Michael King and Ryan Feltner are your starters. Now, I think we're going to get a lot of value spots with Colorado at home at Coors Field where they play their best baseball, but to me, this is not the best matchup. Michael King is somebody that's had some issues with the control this year. We saw him walk 7 batters in that game against San Francisco, but the Rockies do have one of the lowest walk rates in all the league against righties this year, so I don't think they're going to be able to take advantage of that in this game. Michael King's coming off one of his best starts, really, of his career in the last game against Milwaukee. A really tough Brewers lineup, 7 2/3 innings of 1 earned run baseball with 10 strikeouts in that game. While the Padres offense did not back him up in that one, I think they will here at Coors Field against Ryan Feltner, who's not in great form. We saw him give those 6 earned runs and 2 home runs in the last game against Philadelphia, and that game was at Philadelphia. It wasn't even at Coors Field, so that's a concern for me. I'm going to go with the San Diego Padres on the run line, laying the 1.5 runs. Next up, we see the Baltimore Orioles taking on the Los Angeles Angels. Grayson Rodriguez and Griffin Canning are the projected starters. And originally, we thought Grayson Rodriguez was going to go on Monday, but the Orioles moved him to Tuesday. And now it's a lot more of a lopsided pitching matchup in favor of the Orioles because Gray Rod, we mentioned, has pitched really well this year. He's got great strikeout numbers. He hasn't given up a home run in each of his last 2 games, which is important. The control's been fine, and the Orioles are 4-0 in his first 4 starts. So I think he pitches well. And Griffin Canning has not pitched well this year. An ERA above 8. His last start was okay against the Rays, but it was still an Angels loss in the end. And I can't trust him here with the Angels bullpen behind him and the Angels lineup, honestly, very inconsistent so far this year. So give me the Baltimore Orioles in this one on the money line. Next up, we see the New York Mets taking on the San Francisco Giants. We're going to see Luis Severino and Logan Webb as the projected starters. We took the under in the last start for Logan Webb against the Diamondbacks. That was on April 18th. And we mentioned that Logan Webb was pitching at home against an Arizona team that has the second highest ground ball percentage offensively in all of baseball. So for a ground ball specialist like Logan Webb, who needs to keep the ball on the ground in order to have success, it was a good matchup for him. And he went 7 innings of 2-hit baseball, no earned runs, and like I said, a 5-0 final score. But now you're facing the New York Mets, who have surprisingly been decent offensively this year. They had a really slow start to the season, but they've turned it on. We saw them, have a nice series against the Dodgers, and they're actually the 8th lowest ground ball percentage in all of baseball so far this year. So not necessarily the best matchup, in my opinion, for Webb, even though he's still pitching at Oracle Park. And with how well Severino has pitched on the other side, he's coming off a 6-inning, no earned run performance against the Pirates and another Mets win. And with how well the Mets bullpen has been this year, you match it with the Giants bullpen ERA above 5, I think there's value with the New York Mets in this spot on the road. I think they get the Webb for a few runs, even though he's had good numbers against them in his career. I still think the Mets do enough here. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game, so I'd lean towards the under, but I think the Mets are the value side here, so I'm going to go with the New York Mets on the money line. And that's it. Those are the games for Tuesday in baseball. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe, and don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comment section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pick Dawgz Premium. As always, this is Romanelli. Good luck.